And with that, it is exactly 10:30. So thank you all very much for joining our webinar today. If you've been on a IAMS webinar before, you'll see the format's a little different today. We're crunched for time, so we will. I want to level set what the expectations are. We'll go for about a half an hour here. I've got a strategic partner on the phone, Rob Marcovitz, and of course, we're going to talk about the appointment setting options that we do have here. So I'll start with a short introduction of me. So my name is Chad. I'm 25 years in the insurance industry. I've always worked to connect advisors to clients and clients to carriers. So I've got the battle scars to prove it. And I invited Rob on today because I think it's important to have strategic partners. And Rob is very well versed in a variety of different different subjects, not just to say different programs, but different subjects. He's a motivational speaker, he's a consultant, and he has excellent insight into a variety of topics and ways to connect you with clients. And it's why we're all here today. And it's the lifeblood of the business. So with that, I know it's really hard to work on the engine while it's running. And I think it's important that we level set that that we get some actionable items out of the time that we spend here today. We could be on the phone with clients, we could be on the phone or in person meeting with somebody, but we've taken a half an hour out today to really find ways to grow and scale our business. And the first thing I want to do is to level set that today's conversation will not be a regurgitation or a deep dive into this program does X and it costs Y, and this program is 1 and it costs 2. I think it's important to say that a lot of people some people hop on this phone call and say, I want to know what the best lead program is for me. Well, I don't know. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your experience is. I don't know what your target market is. I don't know what your superpower is. I'm not sure what the foundation of your business is. And it's important for us to get an understanding of what that is to then put you into that right program or partner with you with that right program so that it works for you. And then what is the definition of work? And so I'm getting a little bit off the beaten path here with that, but I do want to level set that at the beginning. You won't hear us say, use this company or try this company or this company. We'll get there, but not until we're all of an understanding what's going to work best for you. In a previous webinar, and I'm going to let Rob talk here, we had talked about that, lost my train of thought here for a second, but talked about how which one is the right one for you. And again, we just don't know what that is. So Rob, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to give a brief introduction, and then we're just going to have a conversation back and forth, and we'll hit on a variety of subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, Chad, what you kind of just said about, making a change, doing something different, and how important that is. We're in January, I mean, scary. We're already 3 weeks into the first month of the year, and how time goes just like that. And, you and I had a great conversation about, doing the goals and some of that. And you guys on this call, and by the way, thank you for spending some time with Chad and I, but we all come up with goals, whether it's personal goals or financial goals. And Chad, speaking about my motivational speaking thing, one of the biggest challenges I see with clients when I talk to them, especially on just the motivational side, is, everybody's got goals. And is it important to write them down? Yes, but you can write them down all you want, but you got to have a system to make that change. And I think really, Chad, you said something that was very poignant in your little bit of an introduction is, when you're in the insurance business, it's really about activity. And that's what it's about. You kind of said, hey, I like to connect you to the clients. I like to connect the agent to the carriers and to make things a little bit smoother. And I think that's an integral part of what goes on. And a lot of agents spend so much time trying to, figure this out and figure that out. And I'm like, I always have this saying, to my clients is like, hey, stay in your lane. You're not a marketer. You're not an IMO, whatever. And that's why you're attached to somebody like I'm. So, Chad has a whole team over there that just does website build out and all the, IT logistics stuff, and it's like, take advantage of that, because when it comes right down to it, and one of the things I love you said, Chad, is, hey, we're taking a half an hour out of your time, but you could be sitting in front of a client right now. if you can figure out how to make your time more efficient and fill in those hours where you're not busy, we can double or triple up your business. And so I think really, from pre-chatting with Chad, that's kind of where we were, the goal of what this appointment is, but also the goal of it is, hey, we have this goal, but we're going to give you a system. And I think that's the thing that is missing from a lot of clients I have, whether it's, on coaching or, in the insurance side, whatever it is, it could be a variety of things, is, we all come up with the goals, but a lot of times we don't put a system in place to get to the goal. And that's really what's important. So, Chad, I don't know if you have a comment on that at all, but that's kind of where we were going before.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to one of my favorite sayings, is that it's so difficult to work on the engine while it's running, so that when we do take that time out to do that, it really has to be focused, and it has to be, you got to have a return for that. So with that, Rob, one of the conversations that we've had in the past that I always find interesting is that, of course, there's no magic bean, there's no perfect system, any appointment system.
Right.
And today's webinar was entitled, there was federal leads, there's K-12 leads, there's university leads. Can you just talk for a couple of minutes on each of those about your experience in knowing your market, and does it fit you? And I'll throw you the softball question here, is that, and it's food for thought for everybody here, but if you're the kind of advisor that runs 1,000,000 miles an hour and you're a couple minutes late for this, or maybe a couple minutes late for that, that's not a great quality trait for the K-12 market. It might fit well in another one, but again, driving down into which one of these is going to work best for you. It's not just a lead program or an appointment setting program, but it's an appointment setting program for a specific market. So Rob, I'll tee up with that, and if you can talk about each one of
that's
those
perfect and great. That's a great introduction to that, Chad. And like Chad said, so think about the different markets. We have the K through 12 market. We have the college university market. And when we speak of those markets, we're talking about the employees in those markets, so the public employees in those markets. So when we say universities, it's the university employees, not the student base, just so you guys know. Also city, county, municipalities. So think about, police officers, firemen, city, county, municipal workers. The next one's going to be the federal market. We also do have some state hospitals that we run. So a state hospital could be a few things. It could be the University of Michigan's Medical Center. It could be, which is tied to the university. And sometimes they separate those out. Or it could be like Sarasota Memorial Hospital down in Florida, which is a standalone county-owned hospital. So we have access to those as well. And I do think, it's kind of interesting. One of the cool things about these appointment systems that we're talking about, they're appointments, they're not leads. We create, sell, deliver, confirm one appointment one time for a single agent. We don't resell that list. We don't give away free iPads, free gift cards, free anything to help create an appointment. And, the client is setting up an appointment at the time they want to choose. And Chad and I will get into that a little bit more. But what's prevalent about what Chad said is, hey, if you're running the K through 12 or even the university market, and you're always running, you're one of those people that's a minute or two behind, that is not a market for you. Those guys' mindset is built on a bell system. And it's like, if you're not in the chair at 10 o'clock, if it's 10 o'clock appointment, that means 9:59 to them. I mean, everything I've done with Chad, and I haven't known Chad that long, but he and I get along really well, and he's very prompt about stuff, and he's on time. I mean, you can see his leadership skills even at the start of this Zoom meeting. I mean, how many of the Zoom meetings have you guys been in the past with, whether it's a carrier or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll get around to it. It's 5 minutes past the hour. Chad doesn't work that way. So these school teachers don't work that way, and they expect you to be there on time. And so you've got to get started off on the right foot. And when you don't do that, that's where we see higher no-show rates. We see, less closes, some of that stuff. So we're trying to create and provide you with the vehicle. We're trying to provide you with the Formula One car already built, but you need to follow the process a little bit to make sure it's prevalent. As far as the markets go, like federal or city, county, or the college appointments, where should I be? Well, which market do you know a little bit more than the other one, and it's important, right? Wherever you're comfortable. Now, that's not to say you can't move from one to the other. We have some agents that go, hey, I'm going to run multiple states, and I'm going to run, California, Texas, and in Ohio, K through 12, and in college, I'm going to run California, Texas, and Florida, right? And one of the cool things about these appointments is they're virtual. So the nice thing is you can be sitting pretty much anywhere in the world and run these appointments and do business. I have a great client of mine, has been a client of mine for about 7 years now, 6 years, and moved to Costa Rica 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And of course, it's in the Mountain Standard Time Zone, which probably helps him. But he was based out of Denver. He moved to Costa Rica full time, and he's buying appointments from me and does very well. So it's an opportunity.
So Rob, yeah, thank you for that. So that's understanding which market that we are all considering going into, or where we're going to have some runway with that. One of the things that you talked about within that was, what I want to talk about is expectations. So some of the feedback I get from advisors that I've worked with as well, hey, I bought that lead program and it sucks. Well, why did it suck? Well, I bought 10 and I didn't sell 10 clients. Well, that would be a pretty awesome program. And I know that one size doesn't fit all, but in your experience and in your leadership, I'm going to set you up with 2 questions.
Okay.
What's a good return on an investment? And I realize that's an open-ended question.
Right.
And let's talk about that first, name and number you get, what the expectation is for that conversation.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the first question, really talking about ROI, one of the, I have a lot of agents that come through me through IAMS, and Chad knows, hey, he gets you set up on their system and go, hey, let you talk to Rob. He's our subject expert there. And, none of these appointment companies are perfect. Let's just be honest. And they all go through ebb and flows, and it's like, sometimes I have one that's got a higher no-show rate than the other one, right? And some markets, ones are performing better. And so I get that feedback from all of you guys. I call you guys clients, even though you're agents, but I get that information direct from you guys. So my bandwidth on that side is really huge. And because of that, it helps us to be able to make a little bit of a judgment call for you. I would say when I really look at close rates, number one is a lot of times what I find, and Chad, you kind of already said it, but the close rate sort of follows the agent, and I get it, once in a while I'll just have an agent, he'll go, I'm like, well, what's the close rate going to be? And I'm like, well, what was your close rate? Well, I did this and it sucked and I was closed at 8%. I did this one and it was okay and I closed at 15, and did this one and I closed and I was 12, and the other one was just okay and I closed at 9%. You're probably going to be a 10% closer. I would say across the board in the appointments, looking at them, the close rate's going to be in that 22 to 28% area. I do have some guys, I was speaking to one of them yesterday, a client of mine named Milton's been a client of mine for 10 years. His close rate across the board is a little over 50%, regardless of what appointment company he's been on. So he's created, the goal, and he's created the system or process to get there, right? And he's kind of honed that experience into being able to do the appropriate thing to make closes on that. So, but I would say, if you go on appointments, I expect to close 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5, somewhere in that area, 20-25% would be a good number. What was the second question, Chad? I apologize.
That's okay, because as I was looking at the notes that come through, one of the things that I asked you about was expectations for an investment into a lead program, because one of the pieces of feedback I get is, well, I get so many darn no-shows. I can't believe I spend this money and these people signed up and then they don't show up. I'm chuckling a little bit here. This webinar is the most signed up for webinar that IAMS has had in the last 12 months, the most. So it is a hot topic. Activity is king, knowledge is king. Being in front of people it's an ever-present topic for everybody.
Right.
I got about a 60% no-show. So it happens. Real life happens. So what I want to do is set expectations that no matter what program you buy or invest in, it's not a 100% every phone number you're going to get is going to answer. You're going to have an appointment.
Right.
You're going to make a client for life. There is that wiggle room, and I established that to talk about you. Why I like working with you in this capacity is I get the same calls. I'm a licensed advisor. I get calls from lead programs all the time, and they want one thing at the end of that phone call. They want my credit card number so they can sell me 20 leads. And if I give it to them, I may never hear them again. I may never hear from them again. One of the things that, as I call all of you back who are on this webinar, the value that I want to bring to the table is my strategic partnership with Rob that not only leverages his experience, but his accountability. And I said I wasn't going to mention any of the names of companies that were doing really great. And boy, if you buy this one, it's going to work well. So I'm going to extend that same courtesy back to. We do have some that aren't doing so well every once in a while. And
Absolutely.
you need to know that. And
Yep.
because you just don't, I get this. How many of you are going to get 25 calls from an IMO today? If you could all raise your hands, you would, because everybody's calling out. So our lead source program, so is this marketing program, so is this seminar program. So I have such an affinity and an admiration for independent financial advisors because you are the CEO, you're the chief marketing officer, your payroll, your sales, you're the janitor. There is no shortage of things that you are responsible for. And so how do you choose? How do you invest in a strategic partner that aligns with your goal and is accountable for what you both want? And so that's one of the values of having Rob on this program, is that when we do take that next step, and I'm going to re-ask the question, Rob, like, what is that? What should be the expectation? What's the goal of a first appointment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go and great lead in on that, because I think, one of the things that Chad and I both have to offer you guys as clients through IAMS is being able to give you some of those little, so to say, tricks of the trade. I mean, you can go on these appointments, you're doing pension analysis, you're doing retirement reviews. That's what they're expecting on the appointments. And one thing that we do have to offer, some of those extra little tools to be able to meet your goal. The goal of the first appointment, of course, is to get a second appointment. But what do you do if you call somebody and they don't show up? We have some little things that, we all know, meaning Chad and I and all of you on this call, because you're in the financial services sector, but the client really doesn't know, little key catchphrases that can really hook people in. So say, for example, you call on your phone call, your appointment time is at 10 o'clock, you call them at 9:59, let's just say they don't answer. We have some specific, dialogue that for example, hi, Sally, my name's Rob. I'm the representative that's supposed to be assisting you with your retirement concerns. I like the word concerns, because when we say that, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I am kind of concerned about my retirement, right? I know you set up this phone call that, or this appointment at 10 o'clock today. I'll be calling you back in exactly 5 minutes. I want to make sure your pension shortfall is covered or your retirement income gap's covered. Well, we sitting in this call know that phrase, retirement income gap or pension shortfall. But most of these, 91 to 92% of the people that participate in a pension have no idea what their pension even pays. And so typically, on that first appointment, when you're talking to somebody, and I think really, Chad, that's really the opportunity, is when I talk to agents, I'm like, give me your two biggest challenges in the financial services industry. And I always hear two things. Number one, meeting a new client. Well, meeting somebody's easy, right? I could be at a restaurant, I could be on stage, I've had that happen on stage, and I jumped off and I put my hand out, and I go, hi, I'm Rob. And the guy goes, I'm Paul. And I go, I now know Paul. The challenge is, how do I get Paul to push his finances across the table at me? Well, the nice thing is, with these appointments, we're talking to him about pension, retirement. We're talking to him about, hey, would you like to know when you can retire? Would you like to know what options are available for income when you retire? Would you like to know how many more years you possibly have to work, right? So their engagement to get into the appointment isn't about, hey, yeah, I want to sign up to win a free iPad or a free gift card. No, it's about having a pension retirement review. So that's what they're expecting. But the second biggest challenge I always hear from agents is, hey, everybody I meet that has a job and has some income already has a financial advisor. How do I get around it? Well, the cool thing is the pension market is very neglected. And I was speaking to a large group of mine, 10,000 agents live in a crowd in Las Vegas. And you know, I asked them, hey, raise your hand if you are, you know, they're all licensed people. And I said, licensed insurance agents. I said, raise your hands if you have a fireman, a police officer, you know, a city, county, municipal worker, school teacher, professor, a this or that, whatever, somebody that participates in a pension, raise your hand. Well, I literally had 10,000 hands up in the air, right? And my next thing out of my mouth is, now keep your hand up if you've ever reviewed their pension. There were 5 hands up. So it's a neglected area. And so really the opportunity on the appointment is you could start out the appointment and the client could say to you, you know, looking at this appointment, I don't even know why I set this up early because I already have a financial advisor. That's great, Sally. I'm glad you have a financial advisor. Have they ever reviewed your pension with you? 99 times out of 100, you're going to get no, right? And so that is an opening there for you to be able to get in, you know. Hey, well, Sally, you know, what do you think you're going to retire with? Like I said, 91 to 92% of them have no clue, you know, and so they give it a guess. It's usually, oh, hey, 80 grand a year. Great. Where'd you get the 80 grand from? Well, I've been teaching for, you know, 18 years and I've been making 80 grand the last 3 years. So I assume with my time of service and I'm making 80 grand, I'll retire with 80 grand. You're like, great. Hey, you told me you had a financial advisor. He didn't go over this with you? No, why? Well, can you retire in $42,000 a year? No, why? Right? Well, they don't realize there's that pension shortfall there. And that pension shortfall ranges from about 35% to 60%, depending on the state. They all have one. They just don't realize it's there. And so when you tell them that, you know, it's sort of like that appointment time, you know, you're like, hey, Sally, good news, bad news is, look, you have a little over half your expectation taken care of, 42,000. You take them through the calculation, right? The bad news is you're 38,000 short. What'd your advisor put in place? You know, what'd you put in place? You know, what do you have in place? Well, it's always nothing, nothing, help, right? And so really that's where the opportunity lies. And, you know, agents and I sell appointments to both securities license agents and life only license agent, doesn't really matter. But sometimes, and I'm not picking on you securities guys, but you know, in this business, you know, you can get more initials behind your last name and then your last name is long. But what you all got to do is go get a GID, and that's called get it done, right? Because the rest of it doesn't matter. People don't care about that. Life's about show and tell, not tell and show. Never has been, right? It's always show and tell. And so I think sometimes we get a little bit of ahead of ourselves and we spew out all this stuff when the client's just wanting, hey, I just want a pension retirement review. And they're showing you the money, then you're showing them the shortfall. And then once you identify that, that's where the opportunity lies. So, you know, typically what I say on that first appointment is it's set up to do the pension retirement, you know, pension retirement review introduction. But the goal of the first appointment is setting the second appointment, you know, and that's really, really what goes on that side of it, Chad. And again, you know, like with my first introductory questions that Chad and I can help with, we'll also be able to help you with that part of setting an appointment. You know, setting an appointment, again, you don't ask to set an appointment, show and tell, you tell, right? Hey, Sally, I'm available at 3 or 4 o'clock on Thursday. Which day and time works best? Because when you ask, people are complacent. I'm complacent. We're all complacent in some form or manner, right? And so I think there's can be a big opportunity when you really take that directive to be able to say, hey, Sally, I'm available at 3 or 4 o'clock on Thursday. Which day and time works best for you? Well, you know, can you just call me when you get all the numbers? Well, Sally, look, I get super busy. I'm helping hundreds of teachers just like you. I want to make sure, you know, you're not using the Walmart reader plan to fill in your shortfall, right?
Yeah.
That's a great line. I want to make sure you're not using the Walmart reader plan to fill in your shortfall. I'm going to pencil you in for 3 o'clock on Thursday. If something comes up, we'll get it rearranged, but plan on 3 o'clock on Thursday. So those are some of the caveat and little pieces that both Chad and I can offer to you because, you know, Chad's been in this business for a long time, like you said. So sorry, I got off there a little
no,
bit, Chad.
no, it's perfect. And you know, I set you up, and I'm smirking about this because level setting. We are on the precipice of the largest transfer of money that this country has ever seen. As the boomers age and pass, There's billions of dollars to be transferred to the next generation. That's all opportunity for all of us. And you have to be able to dot the I and you have to be able to cross the T. Activity is king, but I think knowledge is way more important than that. Are you doing the right things? And so we're $34 trillion in debt as a country. We're set to collect just a little over 4 this year. And like I'm an annuity marketer, so I'm not the brightest guy you've ever met. But that's a $30 trillion deficit. Taxes are going to go up. There are so many opportunities for us to be visiting with people who need our help. And I say all that to say this: there are no shortage of options for you to go online, to pick up a cold call. Hey, I'm gonna give you 5 free leads. An IMO will pitch that. Well, what are you going to do with those 5 free leads? Or I'm going to invest $2,000 in this lead program. Great. You've got 20 names with 20 phone numbers. There are no shortages of options available to you. Who's accountable to that? Who's your partner with that? So I'm going to wrap up.
I think one of the cool things on that side, sorry to interrupt you, Chad. One of the cool things on that side is, hey guys, because of your association with IAMS, there are no contracts. I mean, I have one company that requires a contract, but there are no contracts. IAMS is taking care of your sign-up fees, monthly access fees, registration fees. So you're $0 out of pocket. There's no contracts, there's no minimums, no maximums. On that appointment side, it all falls into a calendar system. The biggest thing, and Chad started this conversation out with, is being in the insurance business is all about activity. Otherwise, it's home run, strikeout. I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm rich, I'm poor. Well, the only way you can resolve that is by keeping your pipeline full. And the way to keep your pipeline full is, some of you are, have enough knowledge behind you to go and market, but you need to, those laws are changing, and so you got to follow the ICANN laws. There's a whole bunch of parameters behind there. A lot of agents don't know about. You violate the ICANN laws, you can get fined $46,000 per email if you violate them. So one of the things we do on our site, of course, because we send millions of emails, we're very cautious about that, right? And I think the other thing is, it still goes back into stay in your lane. If, most agents are spending, 1/3 of their day kneecap to kneecap or Zoom face, whatever, with the client, and they're spending 2/3 of their day trying to figure out how to market themselves. Well, if I can fill you in, if Chad and I can fill you in with one of these appointment systems, whether it's one of the ones I represent, Chad has some other options I don't even represent that they have as well. But if we can help you fill that in those 2/3 of the day at the time when you're not busy, instead of you trying to figure out how to get in there, we can usually double to triple up your business just by doing that alone. And I think that's the important thing too, leading back to this is the beginning of the year. You probably didn't make your goal last year. If you said, hey, I made 200, I wanted to make 400, well, what are you doing to change it? What system are you putting in place to change it, right? And then the rest of it is keeping track of where am I on the scoreboard, and going back to what I said about complacency with our clients, and we've all run into them, hey, I'm going to hold off. I don't know what I want to do, and the years tick by. It's the same way for us. When you have that goal to meet at the end of the year, the time's ticking, right? And you're a month in, now you only have 11 months to make that goal. If you said, hey, I want to make, whatever the number is, hey, I want to make $1.2 million this year. Well, if you haven't made 100 grand or 75,000 of it by now this month, you're already behind, and so I think you really got to watch the scoreboard as you're going, but you need to make the initial change. You got to take the step to be able to do something different to get there for sure.
All right. Well, we do have a hard stop at 11. I'm going to wrap up with 2 things very quick. If you haven't heard it from IAMS, I'd be surprised. And I'm going to say it again and again and again. We want to be on your team, not on your payroll. I want to earn my spot in helping you grow your business, and that's through knowledge. It's through strategic partners. It's through incentive programs. And so when Rob talked about no contracts, that's right. I'm not going to hold you hostage. You're not going to hold me hostage. We can work together to grow and scale our business. I don't eat unless you eat. I feed my family when you feed your family. So I work very hard for the advisors that I choose to work with. And I'll wrap up with one thing towards that investment. If everybody wants to get into their calendars right now and you block out February 4th from 11 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central, we're doing an all agent kickoff for the year. It's called Ascend. We had over 1,500 advisors on it last year. You do not have to be contracted with IAMS to be a part of it. That's different than a lot of our competitors. We want to share knowledge. We want to spread the net wide so that that people are doing the right thing. And the keynote speaker this year is a Nobel Peace Prize winner in economics. And with all the noise around the Fed and the potential appointment of a new chairperson, his insights into what's going to go on in the marketplace. He's even built an indice for a carrier that we work with that we're one of only 2 IMOs that can contract. It's going to be an impactful conversation. You got to have a reason to block out that much time on your day. And I'm telling you, the reason to block out your time on that day is you will take something away that will help one of your clients. I guarantee it. So, Rob, we had a spammer.
What was the day and time on that again, Chad? February 4th?
February 4th, Wednesday, February 4th, 11 to 4 Central Time.
Okay.
We had a spammer join the chat. So I have a lot of X-rated questions I could ask, but I won't do that.
Yeah.
So if you did have a question, I'll reach out to you individually, and I will call everybody on this and share the recording, and we can do whatever. But Rob, thank you so much for your time.
No, absolutely grateful for the time. Thank you everybody for being on the call. We appreciate it, and hopefully I'm talking to you soon. So next steps, get a hold of Chad, and he'll line you up with me, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Stay warm.